Hello there, boxing fans around the world. Thank you once again for joining us after 2 days of going solo. Me first, and then Kristian yesterday, doing a great show, by the way, on Anthony Joshua. We're back as a pair, as a duo, to discuss today Oleksandr Usyk and his now newfound fame in the heavyweight division. So you're asking the question, quite frankly, will he be around in 5 years? And where does he stand up against the remainder of the heavyweight division, notwithstanding the upcoming October 9th fight and the outcome of it? But there are some definitely some heavyweight contenders to speak of that he's going to have to deal with. And might I add, since doing a bit of research on Anthony Joshua, my opinion of him fell a little bit the other day. You might have noticed if you did watch my solo broadcast. I didn't realize he was such a bad boy. Now, maybe he's cleaned up his act. I'm not so sure. But then when I was looking up Usyk in parallel, I noticed that he's actually quite the opposite. He's a family man. He's a man of integrity, quite the patriot, says the right things. So, and then you take a look at, say, the management of each. So there are some intangibles to speak about when we discuss heavyweight's career moving forward, especially one who's now been crowned champion, notwithstanding the October 9th fight. So we'll see where it goes. But I would like, after hearing what you have to say in your opening remarks, I want to discuss some of these intangibles as well. Over to you.
Okay. It was not a big shock for myself and for many people, obviously, with the case that Usyk did win the bout. Now, moving on, it is still not clear 100% what is happening, obviously, with how Usyk is going to be going forward, whether it's going to be a straight rematch with Anthony Joshua, or there's going to be some kind of situation where it's going to be, as they're terming at the moment, the road to undisputed, where you've got Dillian Whyte fighting Otto Wallin, with the winner of that obviously about to move forward to the winner of Fury and Wilder, or possibly, all depends if Usyk's going to be skipping, obviously, Wilder or Otten, whoever wins, or if Anthony Joshua is going to... There's so many... What I thought was going to clear up the top of the division a few weeks ago, a few days ago even, has sort of becoming, again, it's a mess that I don't want to even bother to explain at the moment because there's too many ins, outs, but it's just a merry-go-round. And it's not cleared up. Nothing is cleared up. And I was hoping that Usyk was going to win. I was hoping that, we don't know what's going to happen, obviously, yet with Fury and Wilder, but I was hoping for Wilder to win, to open everything up, to save all the confusion, this merry-go-round, and this situation where whatever's happening at the top is then obviously just rolling down the queue and just rolling down moving down and going down all the way down the division, with everyone not knowing what they're doing because of how it affects them, with if they could get to the top and if they can get a shot, or if they could become a mandatory, or if they could... It's just a mess. Nothing is any clearer. I cannot think of anything at this point, apart from, obviously, you've got next week, and you've got, obviously, recently Wallin versus White that's been announced. I can't think of anything now that's any clearer. If you're looking at the top going back, Joe Joyce, who is now the mandatory, now that Usyk's mandatory position has been used, well, where does he fit in anything that's happening at the moment? I'm going to go on in a moment to tell you what I think about Joyce versus Usyk, should that fight ever happen. But it's just, before I start saying how I think they're going to fare with the other fight, who they're actually going to fight, because I really can't see it. It's clogged again.
And just
crazy.
to
it's clogged. It's a mess still.
It is a mess, and that's why my question actually yesterday was whether Anthony Joshua would remain in the top 5 next year, not whether he'd be around 5 years from now.
Sorry. Okay. Yes, he will be. I think.
Well, okay, so
it still stands, and I think he'll be around in 5 years. Usyk, I don't think will be, because he's 34 now, 39. Yeah. He's reached one of his top goals. I just think that he wants to get that last WBC belt, then he will be out of it. But I just can't see. I can't even say, well, that will happen if the winner is from Fury and Wilder is going to be whoever. Then he fights that person, because we don't know, because we've got the AJ rematch, or is it going to be the winner of Dillian White and Otto Wallin that's going to be fighting. Whoever wins between Fury and Wilder, but who, how, what is AJ? And it's clogged. And that still is going to domino back all the way down a division.
Absolutely. And as a fan, I'll repeat what I've said before. I'm not so sure that it's fair that Anthony Joshua can demand a rematch. I think if I was to unclog that division, I would start by saying, no, you were beaten soundly and you had your chance. And now if Usyk wants to take on either one of those fighters, Fury or Wilder, no matter who wins, I think that's up to Usyk. But obviously it's not. And that's why I said earlier, some of the other intangibles are the management teams involved, the promoters who are involved. These are some of the intangibles. I'm speaking generally, we didn't think that Usyk would have either the reach or the power to take on Anthony Joshua, but he proved me completely wrong. And I'm sure there are other boxing fans who are surprised by that outcome as well. Now, going forward, I just don't think it's fair because, again, this goes to clogging up the heavyweights. I don't think it's fair that Anthony Joshua can demand a rematch. He lost. He got beaten.
Absolutely. Now, the answer to all this, I think, is what they should have done. What they should do is what they did in the mid-'80s when you had the tournament, which Don King put together with Mike Tyson, with Tim Witherspoon, with Michael Spinks, and with Tony Tubbs, and with everybody back then, where they had the unification series, where everyone pitched in. You had one champion, undisputed, and then you had all the contenders would be lining up. But at least everybody knew at that point what was happening, when, a timescale, and then could plan accordingly. And now there's no way that they can plan. There's nothing. A lot of these fighters, do they risk putting their unbeaten, or do they risk putting themselves into a risky fight, with the possibility of being beaten, or do they hang around and sort of fight lower tier opposition just to save their position? But how long do they do that for? Because if they keep on having low opposition fights, the fans are going to be very unhappy. They will lose fans. This is what surprised me with Dillian White versus Oleksandr, because I do think that is a very risky fight. I was completely surprised. I'm going to say fair play to Dillian White for accepting that. But this is what everybody down the line should be doing, is everyone should be effectively paired up like Effie Jabber and Frank Sanchez. And you've got the rematch of the fight below that, obviously with the Polish chap and Hellenius. Everybody should be pairing up, because as soon as you've had all these fights, just one session of fights out of the way, that's halved the amount of people that are then in line, and you can get some kind of order, something's got to happen here, because otherwise people are going to get really bad fights consecutively, where they're just trying to hold on to their position just in case they do get their shot down the line if they remain unbeaten, for example. It's the example I will use of somebody that appears on the surface, who's actually doing it right, is going to be the heavyweights, what's his name? He fought just the other week, guy you like. Unbeaten. He was, oh God. Yeah, I think it needs some more energy drinks.
The Nigerian?
No, not the chap. Oh God, lost my head. It's come out of my head completely. Come back to him in a moment.
Is he not from Britain?
No, absolutely. Yeah, he's not from Britain. The more we think about it, the more it goes out of my head. They call that the law of reversed effect. That's the name which I have typed about, that gets processed on a daily basis, bang, straight up my head. But what he's doing is that he has been trying to fight people all the way down to the top 15th, and everyone is not accepting the fight. So he's going to be unjustly having to fight somebody maybe below that. But it's going to be, I think, in the IBF, he's possibly going to be matched up with Michael Hunter, and that fight should be happening. I think Michael Hunter turned it down before, but it's going to be either Michael Hunter or Martin Bacoli, and it's going to be facing him in one of the final eliminators. But I think all the way down, what I'm trying to get at is that I think all the way down, they should be put in some kind of structure into place so they can actually find an order of the people that are fighting, because it's a mess all the way down. And people now you're going to find, apart from the people like the Effie Jaguars and Frank Sanchez, those fights aside, you are seeing now that a lot of the heavyweights are going to be fighting second tier people just to keep their record intact.
Correct.
And that's what we've got to. It's unfair because that's not good for the sport, because it'd be a bad fight. And this is when it becomes disinterested. And this is when we lose fans.
Right. Well, one of the American fighters I mentioned previously, and I don't know if this is the fellow you're thinking about, but Jared Anderson is a big boy out of America, and there are guys like that who deserve a shot. There are guys who are of age coming down in ranks, if you will, and who should be, and guys of younger age with lesser fights, but who are climbing the ranks in the fans' opinion. And this is what's not being taken into consideration here. So when you speak about a legacy statement, does a fighter have the right to remain in the ring for 30 or 40 fights just because he's fighting lesser quality, lesser caliber fighters just to maintain that legacy? And I believe the answer is no to that question, by the way.
Absolutely, completely agree. Yes. The other one person, it's like, for example, Joe Joyce. He fought Takam, which is a reasonable fighter, but he should be there quite soon. Does he risk his position by fighting one of the second, third, top tier fighters behind him, or does he go into risky fights? It's that decision. Do you hold on to your position? And at what point? Because I can't see him. He is now the mandatory. I really can't see him having a shot at the title for at least. I'm going to be really negative here for I think 2 or 3 years. And he is a mandatory. I reckon it's going to take 2 or 3 years for this to sort out before if he remains unbeaten, to actually get his shot, which is completely unfair. He is now the mandatory to the WBO. Yes, there's 4, but it's just a complete mess.
Yeah,
it's an absolute mess,
and it's unfortunately not in our hands to clear it up. It's in the hands of people, including as we saw in the headlines today, big brand names who have a lot at stake when putting fighters in the ring. So we're going to see a great fight on October 9th. We've already said that many times. The undercard's going to clear up a lot of those undefeated records. But again, it goes back to who's managing the sport now. If Usyk is he still managed by K2? Are the Klitschko still managing him?
Yes, there's been no change with that as far as I'm aware.
So I would have to imagine that. And is he still being trained by Lomachenko?
His father, he was brought into the camp as well recently. Yes.
So I see there's going to be some kind of rivalry established, if you will, between the how do you say this? The Ukrainian/Russian department and the English department, quite frankly. And I see it. I'm sitting in Canada, and I see it already. It's interesting to see where Usyk went after his fight. He went to meet the mayor of Kiev, and who's that? So anyway, right. So it's not like he stuck around in England to meet the mayor of London. You know what I mean? So I think there's going to be a nice little rivalry, I would hope anyway, established between those two regions that are bringing up. But let's not forget the other parts of the world that are also introducing some new heavyweight challengers. And this I'm agreeing with you. So this is where this is all interesting from the fans' perspective. As okay, once Tyson Fury shuts up, and I hope gets beaten by Deontay Wilder. I just hope he gets clocked with a right, and I hope he hits the deck, and that's the end of Tyson Fury.
I think he will.
I know, but we can hope. But that's the other intangible, and that's exactly what Anthony Joshua just found out. He wasn't expecting to get pummeled in the 12th round.
These were supposedly the 2 banana skins, and we've had the first one. Even if I thought he was going to win, but there's been one. You wait for the second one. I do think that's going to happen. Now, it's a big shame because I think there are marketable fights out there. For example, Joe
Yes.
Joyce versus Usyk. That'll be a rematch of the WSB bout which they had a number of years ago before each one of them turned professional. And it gives you. Have you seen that fight, by the way?
On YouTube, I didn't see it live.
Yeah, okay. The WSB fight. I mean, that is how I see the fight would go now. Absolutely, both of them have progressed equally, but it'd be a good fight. Absolutely. Both of them have proved themselves. That'd be a fantastic fight. And I think the same result would happen. So going on to who would win against who, I think obviously Usyk would handle Joe Joyce quite, I won't say comfortably, but I think that would be a win for him.
Well, how do you see that? Historically, it just reminded me of something. Historically, when your cruiserweight moves up to your heavyweight and wins across the various divisions, so you only have historically Evander Holyfield and
David Haye.
David Haye.
Yep.
Their careers didn't last too long, quite frankly. So it might have taken a lot out of Usyk to get this far, even though he won against Joshua. Now, how many more fights does he have left in him? And I think that's why I'm saying I don't think it's fair for Anthony Joshua to demand a rematch. There's only so many fights left in Usyk to really prove himself as a true heavyweight champion. And one of those fights has to come against, if you ask me, the winner of the October 9th challenge.
Yeah, I think he should be for a legacy. I think he should be allowed to do that.
Right.
And it's a shame because I can't see it. I really cannot. I cannot imagine, and I cannot see it. Don't know. It's the crystal ball. I just can't see him getting a shot at the winner. I just think you're going to have. I think AJ and Usyk rematch is going to happen, and I think you'll find that the winner of Otto Wallin and Dillian White will go for the winner of Fury versus Wilder. I do think that's going to happen. Because with what was proposed by Bob Arum, where that Usyk is guaranteed a shot at the Fury Wilder winner, I can't see that happening. Dillian White, if he beats Wallin, would not accept that. Absolutely no way.
Well, I think you said it best yesterday.
That WBC belt.
You said it best yesterday. Money talks.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, we've got, like I said, we've got some big boys up there now with some big brand names backing them. There's a lot at stake. It's contracted. I did not know that. I did not know that it was contracted.
What part?
Sorry, Carl's just piped in here and said the rematch is contracted, so it'll definitely happen.
Yes, but Joshua has it's contracted in that way, but Joshua doesn't necessarily have to take it. He could decide to not have that fight if he so wishes. But how I've had it so far is that March or April is what they're saying.
Right.
And I think it's going to happen.
Okay, so this goes back to what I'd said during my solo broadcast a couple of days ago, and I just didn't see the desire. I didn't see the spirit, if you will, in Anthony Joshua leading up to that fight, entering the ring, and actually going through the various rounds where he was getting beaten. Will Anthony Joshua take on Usyk again? Yeah, I don't. It's contracted. Okay, so you said it again yesterday. He's got 300 million pounds now sitting in the bank. Does he really need it? Because of course the other intangible out of all this is injury. Usyk has had a few injuries along the way. I don't know about Joshua, but they're taking some pretty serious shots to the head, and I don't know if concussions come into play here or not. So whether Joshua's content with taking his 300 million and walking away, or whether he wants to step back into that ring, I don't know.
I really think he does. He is legacy driven because now this is really setting back, losing to the cruiserweight, coming up in weight. His legacy is very much about legacy, and he will want to. And I think he will hang around until he does. I do think he'll be continuing. I think this is just crystal ball, and it's not based on anything which is actual. I've heard in an interview or something that I think Usyk is gunning for that WBC belt. Once he gets that, I see he will retire.
Right.
Immediately.
Right.
I think you find that Anthony Joshua's 2 or 3 years younger than Usyk, I think, but he'll be around a lot longer. Absolutely.
Well,
How do you think?
I was
Sorry.
just going to say on the bright side of Usyk's career, because it has gone quite well, I must say. But he must be a tremendous inspiration for a lot of young fighters in the Ukraine and Russian regions, the Slavic regions. He must be a tremendous inspiration, not to mention the Klitschko's and the Lomachenkos. But Usyk, that unto itself is a nice little legacy of fighters who have dominated the sport and they must be breeding tremendous boxers, I would imagine by now. So I would imagine if Usyk wins that WBC belt, as you're saying, if that ever happens, yeah, he has every right to retire and retire happily. He seems to me a nice, quiet, decent family man who's not driven by ego. Does he have goals and objectives? Likely, very likely. And is one of them that WBC belt? Likely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think once that's attained, if he can win, he would proudly step aside, and I guarantee let some of these younger fellows take over. And that's just how I see it. Whereas I don't see that happening in Anthony Joshua's case. As you said, he has more to prove. He wants to continue this legacy statement on a personal level, not because he wants to be an inspiration for younger fighters across England. No, because he thinks he deserves that, next level of champion, if you will. The Lennox Lewis of champions, again, which you pointed out. So I'm just not so sure he's entitled to it. He lost. He got beaten. Step aside.
I think he's. By the way, it's Hrgovic I was thinking of earlier that completely missed my mind.
Oh, okay.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Now, I do think that Joshua has found his level. He stepped up with. He didn't step up, but he got beaten by Ruiz Jr. And it's more Ruiz Jr. that in a rematch. I'm sorry, that's not the case of that. It was such a big thing from Joshua winning the rematch, because I think I stick by Ruiz does ate himself, parted himself out of that bout. Yes, he did. AJ did come in with a different game plan, but I think if the same Ruiz that came into the first one, I still think Ruiz would have won that rematch. But it was just a beach whale that came in the second time. That was just disgusting. Yes. It was awful. But what I'm trying to get at from this is I just think that Anthony Joshua, how he was in with Usyk, that's how he is. This is his level. I don't think he can improve much from that. It's a great level. He's become champion in made defenses. He's one of the best heavyweights which Britain have ever produced. But a lot of people, for example, say, let's go to the Andy Ruiz first fight. Now, a lot of people were bashing him and trying to find excuses for why he lost. Now, that wasn't such a bad performance. Hold on with this one. It's not such a bad performance from Anthony Joshua, because he had Ruiz Jr. down, I think it's the third round. Now, if he would have finished that job off, he would have had all the praise in the world. That would have been one of the normal performances from him. It would have been an early KO. It would have been a great performance. It's only because that guy, Ruiz Jr., got up and he was better than the rest of the fighters that he had fought up to that point. Because don't forget, bear with me 1 moment.
Okay.
No. Just look for her now to continue biting me like she was yesterday. Very off-putting. I just think that Ruiz Jr. was one of the first people that Joshua had fought that wasn't an ex-American football player, that wasn't a school teacher, that wasn't, old, over the hill, or was a gatekeeper, or was a journeyman. And that's why he lost. We know about the rematch, as I said, but that was his level. And this is why, with the Usyk fight, again, I'm not trying to gloat about this too much. That's why I picked Usyk to beat him, because Usyk was at the top of his game. Yes, he wasn't young, 34, but there was no decline there. And that's why he lost. And that's why I think that Joshua will lose the rematch. I can't see what else he can do, because he has found his level. And that is, I think, when he mixes with somebody that is very good at the top of the game, he will have a hard time. It's not the case if he has hard problems with just boxers, for example. No, it's just somebody that's going to give it back, that if he does put them down, does get back up, and gives it back to him, that's when he will be put in a crisis, and that is when he is going to lose, and he always will do. That's his level, great level that it is, but there's no more to him. I think this continuing to learn, I think bringing other trainers in, no, it's not going to change him whatsoever. Great fighter, but that is his level.
Right.
Just an opinion. Because if Ruiz hadn't gone up and did what he did, that just would have been another great Joshua performance. It's only because that he lost that people were looking for excuses at that point. You know, look at ring walk, or he seemed disinterested, you know, in the corner of the ring, or playing about with his gum shield before the bout or whatever. You know, those things would have been taken into consideration had he obliterated Ruiz Jr., which he could have done in that first fight. Just an opinion. How do you think Usyk fares against, for example, Fury or Wilder or, let's say, Dillian White? How do you see that going?
I will now pick anyone over Fury. I despise the man. I see nothing good about him, and therefore, as a fan, I don't care who beats him. But if we're putting Usyk into the ring against a properly prepared, properly trained, in shape Fury, I don't think Usyk will beat a Tyson Fury at that level. If Fury goes into it not taking it seriously, he's drinking, he's partying, he's having fun, and he's speaking as loudly as he is now against Deontay Wilder. I mean, you know, that's why I don't like him. But anyway, could Usyk defeat Fury when he's at the top of his game? I don't think so. Deontay Wilder relies on his right hand, and he can knock out anyone at any time, including Usyk. So again, that's a 50-50 for me. Dillian White, I'm not even going to put him in the same category. I don't think he's going. I'd be curious to see if he does beat Otto Wallin.
Right. I'm going to go over to one of those questions now. Why do you dislike Fury so much? Because this is immense.
He's so mouthy. Like I've followed. Yeah, well, okay. I don't mind it. I follow a lot of professional sports, and a lot of professional sports athletes carry themselves in a rather, especially if they're at the top of the game, in a very distinctive, manner. Tyson Fury doesn't. Now, you could argue, well, maybe he's got a grade 2 education. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit spiteful, but at the end of the day, I don't really think he's saying the right things. He's not saying things that make me want to like him. If he would just shut up and let his fists do the talking in the ring, I'd be happy. I'd be happy to see him win. Right now, no, he's on the other side of the river. He's not one of these fellas who I like to like. There are too many heavyweights out there right now. Like I've told you before, one of my favorites, not because he's the greatest of all time, but one of the reasons I like Muhammad Ali is not because of what he did in the ring, but what he was, and yes, he did his fair share of trash talking, but what he did outside of the ring in the community. I've not heard of anything like that come out of Fury's mouth whatsoever. It's all been about, I'm just going to beat this guy to a pulp and that'll be the end of the story. Well, how about going around some children's hospitals, and how about doing some work in the community in your spare time, rather than taking on yet another press conference and sort of shouting something on social media that makes no sense to no one in the world except the Fury family. So why don't I like Fury? Because he's just not saying the right things as a professional. He should have a PR agent. He should hire me, and I'll tell him what to say in public.
Now, somebody brought up the mental health work. Now, just going into that mental health tag, do you think that the mental health that Fury, how can we put this the correct way? Do you think it was genuine? Or do you think this was an excuse, for example, to get out of the Klitschko rematch? which is a possibility. It's
That's a
been
possibility.
said, yeah, out there. Do you think it's something that's? I'm not suggesting it is, by the way. I do like Fury, but recently it's a little bit tarnished. But I'm just sitting on the fence at the moment. Do you think that is genuine anyway?
Nope. I'll go one step further on all this, and I hope I don't get sued. But I don't think for a minute. Okay, yes, he has mental health issues, but I think they're more psychosis related in the sense that he might take a bit too much coke, he might smoke too much weed, he might drink too much beer and or whiskey. I don't know. He's shown himself to be quite the partier, and boxing, if it's done one thing, has proved to us decade after decade that boxers like to party. And that's the one thing that I don't see, by the way, in Usyk. And it's why I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, Usyk's a family man, and he's not about to take himself down that stupid road that many boxers have, which I believe is the road that Fury is on. I don't believe for a minute he has mental health issues. I just think he's
Now, with the question, by the way, just to jump in there to why I suggested it. I wasn't suggesting it from myself. It is actually quite widely put out there that that was an excuse for the Klitschko 2 withdrawal.
Sure.
Which is why it's been brought up recently, obviously in the with the build up to Wilder, because where you had the situation where Fury was coming out of the Wilder match recently because of COVID-19. Is this just an excuse like there was the excuse with mental health with the Klitschko 2 rematch, for example? This is why I was just bringing this up, just to put that one as such out there. But it's wildly been brought up in the lead up, whether it be right or wrong or somewhere in between.
To be clear, I'm not saying he faked anything, but is it an excuse? Absolutely. Are certain athletes now using mental health as an excuse for a poor performance? Yes, they are. Do they really suffer from depression and or anxiety? Probably, but don't we all? So, and aren't they, as professionals and or highly ranked amateurs, don't they have access to the best psychologists, the best sports therapists, the best in the world at whatever is ailing them, including mental health issues? So for me to believe that anyone has a mental health issue and has to back away from, in this case, a fight because of it, no, I'm not going to believe it. I think there's other issues at play that they can't admit to, and those would be drug related.
Somebody's commented, they said, obviously with the situation with Wilder, where he's coming out very foul-mouthed at the moment. Yes, he is. He seems to be doing what Mike Tyson did all those years ago when he said that he wanted to eat Lennox Lewis's children, which was, my God, that was what before their bout, awful. But then again, the whole lead up to that fight, if you remember the press conference was just absolutely awful. But yeah, it's Wilder seems to be going down that drain, if you want to put it that way. But I just think it's whether he's just trying to give that out or that's just his mindset at the moment. But he seems to do a lot of that anyway. But hopefully, not that I'm definitely going to be saying that that's the right thing to do, but hopefully he will fight the way his words are going, if that makes sense. Not about killing somebody or something, but let's see him back in the ring, because that wasn't, I don't think, Wilder last time. Something was completely wrong with the whole thing with that second bout, and it's going to be very interesting.
It will be. So
this is going off of the Usyk thing, but
sorry about that.
No, it doesn't matter. It's because it's all connected. At the end of the day, it's all connected. Especially October 9th, very, very, very. It's got a big play with what's going to be happening with Usyk next, because you won't hear anything about what the AJ and God, this you see it now. Tomorrow it will happen, but be sort of law. But you won't find anything happen, I don't think, with AJ and Usyk until October the 9th is out of the way. I think that you'll get a result, and then you're probably the next week or 10 days after, you will have an announcement Usyk and AJ, if it will be or won't be happening. I think, the boxing world is very much looking at October 9th, because a lot of things are going to be answered. And hopefully that will then give some structure to who is going to be next in line, because, it's a state and it's unfair.
I'll go back to my foundational statement, and that is I want, in boxing, I want to see the best fight the best. And therefore, there needs to be some unclogging in this division. So that will happen on October 9th and in subsequent months when it's decided who will then fight who. Someone has suggested that I've gotten this mental health issue wrong. I don't. You can take a look at any other industry where people who make young people who make absolutely millions upon millions have gotten themselves messed up. Why? Because money buys happiness in their world. And whether you are a boxer, an actor, a singer, songwriter, a footballer, a cricketer, I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, if you're famous, young, and a millionaire, I might also put you're also a little bit stupid. Because when we're all young, we're all stupid, and we do stupid things when we're young. So, quite frankly, you put that much money in one guy's hands, is you. I can go on a little bit about this, but you take a look at how many professional athletes retire broke. And why are they broke? Not because they didn't get paid, but because they spent their money foolishly, right? So at the end of the day, I don't have this mental health thing wrong. I'd love to have a sports psychologist on the show prove me. Well, okay, he would argue anyone who wants to step into the ring and batter his opponent until he knocks out the opponent and is declared the winner. Is that truly, sensible? I don't know. So at the end of the day, I'm in it for the sport, for seeing the best of the best, who are best in the sense of they're well trained, they're well managed, they're fit, above and below. So I'm just saying, like, I don't mind it. But when I see two guys yelling and screaming into microphones at each other and saying absolutely nonsensical things, is it a mental health issue? No. And did he get out of that Klitschko fight because of mental health issues? You might argue there's something wrong with the man, but at the end of the day, was it an excuse? Yes.
Valid points there. And to a certain degree, I agree. But it was just want to ask your opinion, because it's something which I don't know, just something, it's either true and played on, which can happen. And it's one of these strange things, because obviously, as you're well aware, that up until 3 years ago, this was my domain with mental health. And it just didn't appear right back then. But there were so many things. You had obviously drug allegations, I think it was just all too much, and he just pulled himself out of the obligated rematch with possibly what was an excuse. And that, I think, could have happened. Now, just looking at the comments here, it was great. Completely agree. Fury did open up the division by beating, at long last, after 10 years, Klitschko, because that was just held on to for too long. I do like Klitschko, the rest of it, but when you look at some of the defenses like Povetkin, where that was he just clung on and just leaned onto him until Povetkin hit the deck repeatedly. I think it's something like 10 times. I think he was down in total just from being lent on. It was good to see Klitschko gone, as much as I like him and both the brother. And there was something on there about the windmilling and the sweet science. Absolutely. This is why with this fight, I believe, and after next weekend, somebody can come back on here and say that completely got it wrong. Absolutely. But Fury, this is when Fury should beat Wilder, because of the sweet science against the windmilling. But I just think at the moment, I think the mindsets are different. I think the last time in the second bout, I think Wilder was the complacent one, where Fury wasn't. And I think now you've got a role reversal of the mentality going into this fight. And I think Fury's going to be the complacent one. Wilder is the one that's going to come in hungrier, and I do think he's going to come in and do the job. Not that he should be able to, but because the target, because of the situation, is going to be allowed there to happen. I do think that if both were on the ball and everything being right between the two of them, I think that Wilder will beat Fury 1 time out of 10. And I just think that time that punch would land in 10 fights is going to be the next one.
Absolutely. And that's all it takes, is one punch.
Confidence with mentality. Social media, by the way, whoever that is, I'd hardly personally go on social media, especially Twitter. I sort of post on there just for SEO purposes and then run. I don't engage in social media at all. Just with mentality, why do I go down that avenue? Up until 3 years ago, and for 18 years, I was a psychotherapist. I've done years, the required amount, because I went the proper route in uni. So just talking from mentality, how I see it, reading them, that's where that comes from. So not before that, but no, it is, mental health is my old game, absolutely. But I think the casual layman can give their opinion anyway. I just think that just looking at it, you've got Fury that's been partying, Wilder that hasn't. Now, I don't think in the run up so close, bearing in mind this was a short while ago with I think I didn't see in the second bout, didn't see Fury party in the same way. Just complacency. And I'm not breaking that down, trying to break it down with some kind of mental health way of looking at somebody. Just looking at just as a layman, pulling myself actually back from it. He just seems to be complacent.
Yep.
Just an opinion. But at the end of the day, all this thing you have, mindsets at the moment. Was there any truth with the Glovegate situation and tampered gloves and all this? All this is got to be answered in the third bout, because going on to Glovegate very briefly, that if Fury repeats exactly what he did in that second bout, any Glovegate theory, tampered glove theory, will go out the window, because he's obviously repeated exactly the same thing. And believe me, there will be checks in this third bout. It'll be double check or triple checks, everything else. The commission are going to be hot on this, obviously, with everything that's been what they've been accused of. Now, I don't think this is what I mean. Fury should win. He's got all the advantages. He is the better boxer. Sweet science against windmilling, yes, but unfortunately it's windmilling with a punch, a very strong windmill punch. And this is why I just think that 1 time out of 10 is going to be the next one. But we shall see. It could be in a couple of weeks' time, and I'll be there like, oh, okay, got that all wrong. I thought Wilder was going to beat Fury in the second bout. I thought that's going to happen, but I put my hands up high in the air and said I was wrong.
Well, as Fury, I thought Joshua was going to beat Usyk. I was wrong. So
we could all have a prediction anyway, and then it's that good old thing. It just takes one punch, which is why I'm sure most people like it, because you could be following a fight, especially heavyweight boxing, where it could just be bang. Some person could be ahead, they could be in the corner, it could be just about to be stopped, and bang, that's it, all over. Now, one thing that I'm going to mention, and I watched the first Fury versus Wilder bout the other day again, and how I see this, and let me explain if I can explain it wrong without in a tired way, just getting it going off key like I do. Right. In that first bout, I do think that coming away from that bout, I do think that Fury won it for obvious reasons, because of it went the distance and he should have won it on points. But at the same time, it can be argued that Wilder won it. Whoa, why? Now, any other judge that would have been in that fight with, in the manner with Fury, the way he went down, he hit his head on the canvas, he looked spread out, the referee went down to him. I do think probably, I don't know, plucking something out of thin air, I do think 8 out of 10 referees would have immediately waved that bout off. I've seen referees automatically wave off things for a lot less than the way in which Fury hit the deck after being clumped by Wilder. So in that way, I do think that Wilder, and this is what I mean, this is why I've got some confidence in Wilder winning, because that could have easily been a knockout. And Fury, my God, and this is what made me a believer of Fury as a fighter. I mean, how the hell did he get up from that? How the hell did that happen? I really don't know. And I've got huge respect from that. I think, that put the nail in the coffin for people being a believer of Fury. How the hell can you imagine? But my point is that Wilder is capable of beating Fury. Now, it could be argued at the same time that Fury was very weak in that bout, obviously with a big weight loss, and he was only, what was that, 1, 2, 3 bouts in after a 3.5-year layout and all that weight loss and all the rest of it. But those are ins and outs, but can only be answered in the ring. I'm just going by what has been seen. And from that first fight, we know that Fury could win by points. We knew that Wilder can win by knockout. The second one, we know that Fury can win by knockout. And this is why it's still up in the air. And that's why I do just think it's not a foregone conclusion that, Fury is going to be the winner, because you have got that possibility that he can be knocked out by a very hard windmill punch, if that's the case.
Right. And that point raises our often raised point, and that is not to leave it in the hands of the judges, but to settle the fight in the ring with a knockout.
And all the trash talking, whether it's that he wanted to eat children, whether it's a case of murder, whatever. Wilder, and I'm going to defend him slightly here. Sorry if I'm not very popular, but they all do it. Or sorry, I'll change that. A lot of them do it, but I think it's right or wrong when they don't back it up in the ring.
Right.
Because historically, they've all trash talked in some way. Even Muhammad Ali did. I mean, he called Joe Frazier an Uncle Tom, which in the 70s was absolutely a murderous thing to say in the black community. Uncle Tom, my God, that was just absolutely, and this is what obviously added to the spice with their trilogy.
Absolutely.
They've all done it, some more than others. Mike Tyson, and back it up. Let's see. Trash talking. Some of them disgusting. Some of them spit at people. Some of them kiss. Some slap. Some punch in weigh-ins, whatever. Some promise murder, death, whatever. I don't even listen to that. Let's see. Those two, October 9th, I can't wait. But I just think from a layman's point, or a layman's way of looking at the fight, is I just think Fury's complacent. Wilder will win. And I do think, hold on a second, going back to Usyk, let's go back to the original point.
I was just going to say,
Usyk versus Fury, I think that is the one person I think that Usyk would lose to. I just think that Fury, Fury's advantages are even greater against somebody that is a smaller heavyweight, and I just think that Fury definitely would win with Usyk. I think Usyk versus Wilder, definitely Usyk would find a way and have a game plan or two or three in about to beat him. But Usyk right up there. But I think somebody mentioned with Joyce, he's absolutely in the mix. Yeah, Joyce. I mean, he's done everything that's been asked of him since turning professional. He's got quite a good resume, and especially in the short period of time that he has been a professional. Juggernaut, I think he would lose against Usyk based on the the WBS series that happened, where Usyk beat Joyce by getting in and out, legging it, but getting caught every now and again, having to take some punishment. I could see it being a same result again. But I think Usyk would stand up to a lot of them. I think with White, I think it would be a good fight. I think Usyk would win. I think Usyk would probably come out on top apart from everybody, apart from Fury. I just think Fury, with his advantages, those advantages would be greater against somebody that isn't a naturally big heavyweight in stature or everything else. But the only thing is that every month, every delay that happens, and this is why I think another factor from why Usyk was better, obviously, against AJ as opposed to against Derek Chisora or Chaz Witherspoon, is that he's actually growing into a heavyweight at that point.
Right.
And I think that was something where people were saying that Usyk was going to lose to AJ based on, for example, the Chisora, as much as he got the styles completely different. I mean, Chisora came wading in and having to take 2 or 3 to land his one, where that was never going to be something which Joshua did because of the dodgy whiskers or weak chin or stamina issue or anything in that area. He could not afford to take that kind of risk, hence why he came in the way he did in the fight and lost. But people were, he had, I said to you, it was about a year or just under a year since they last fought. It was Halloween, I've just remembered afterwards. That was Halloween last year. He's had just under a year for his body to mature into a heavyweight's body. And he's a fully fledged heavyweight now. I think he would top everyone as far as I'm concerned, apart from Fury.
Well, let's put it this way. He's proven himself in the ring as a heavyweight. with his decision over Joshua, and now he can take on all comers, to be blunt. So, with that being said, I mean, he does have the option of entertaining a long career if he wants that legacy statement as a heavyweight, or, as you say, find himself a way to win that WBC belt and retire a happy camper.
Yep, I think he would do at that point. That is the goal, and he's not going to take step aside money in any way. And I just think Wilder won't as well. Just in that whole equation, which is going on, it's not going to happen. Wilder would not. Not Wilder. Sorry, White will not take step aside money because of how upset he is in that situation where, as the mandatory for the WBC, he had to wait 1,000 and whatever days, obviously, before Povetkin relieved him of that weight as such. But I think that he'd be too driven by that as opposed to the money. But then again, if it's enough money, yeah, I can't see that. That wouldn't be a cheap, persuasive gesture at all that would be taken. No way.
Right.
No. But who do you think? I mean, just last question to you, Graeme, is who do you think would beat Usyk in the heavyweight division? I say Fury would be the only one. What do you think?
That's a good question, because it simply is an equation of how long he stays in the game. As I said previously, there are quite a number of really good young heavyweights willing to prove themselves. So in a few years' time, if Usyk is still hanging around, one of these good young brash fighters, whether it be from Eastern Europe or whether it be from America or maybe even Canada, at the end of the day, it's going to be one of those guys, one of those unnamed guys, guys who shall be named later. Not these current, like I said earlier, there's 5 or 6 of these heavyweights right now who are on the decline, quite frankly. They've had their chance. They're getting old. The money's not on them anymore. When I mean that, I mean the management money's not on them. So if you take that away, take that out of the equation, and you'll allow the rankings some flexibility, if you will, and allow people to move up, to challenge, then realistically, that's what I'm saying. That's what I said to you the other day. How will Usyk fare in 2022? That's the question I'd like to know. Like, will he? Yes, okay. Apparently, a rematch is contracted with respect to Joshua. Whether Joshua takes it is another question. But then, who does Usyk go on to fight? Is it Dillian White? Is it, or is it Fury? I would if Fury wins, which again, that's a big if.
Should do.
Okay.
Should.
All right. But let's say he gets clocked with a right and he's on the canvas. He's down. That's the end of that. Well, actually, no, because as you pointed out in that first fight, that's not the end of that. But let's not leave it in the hands of the judges. Let's let one of them knock the other out. So we have a clear-cut winner and a clear-cut, if you will, divisional champ, where Usyk can then say, okay, that's who I want next.
Sorry if I'm smirking. It's just one of the comments about Alabama anti-Fury. I'm not anti-Fury whatsoever. I've only just sorted out, put some new pictures at the top of the website yesterday. And Fury and Usyk are the two at the top at the moment. I like Fury. It's not a problem. I've gone a little bit on the fence with him now because some of his recent escapades. That aside, no, absolutely. Just because I thought Wilder would beat him in fight 2 doesn't mean I don't like him. No, I like him on the surface. Absolutely.
I think we both agree. Best of the best, going toe to toe, is what we want to see. And right now, that October 9th date is set, and we're both looking forward to it. It is going to be a great fight. It should be a war.
What an evening! Cool.
Yeah, it should be a great evening of fights. But it will conclude with an absolute epic, I believe, and let the best man win.
Yeah, I do believe that the fight is going to go ahead now. I know they can pull out at any time, and you've had the strong rumors, but that's why you saw minimal promo material re this fight up until was it last week or the week before, which was very late. But it's all been ramped up now. No, it's full steam ahead. A few weeks ago, like a few others, I was like a bit skeptic whether the fight's ever going to happen due to whatever reason. But with it being next weekend, no, it's got to go ahead. And yeah, looking forward to it. Great night. Out of curiosity, last bell boxing, who do you think is going to win, Fury or Wilder? I think he's allowed this comment with the many comments he's given.
I will answer on his behalf. He is absolutely 110% confident that Fury will beat Wilder. You don't even need to answer last bell boxing. I will answer for you.
Okay, if that is the case. All right, here we go. Fury, well, okay, so heard it here first. Right.
Round 7.
I mean, this is it. Fury should win. Absolutely. Look at the beatdown Wilder got in that second fight. There is nothing from that to say that, Wilder should win apart from a lucky windmill shot. But I just think the mentality, because a lot of the mentality side of things is, as they say stereotypically, that, it's 80% mental, 20% physical, whatever. They will come out with different equations. But I just think complacency can turn what should be a foregone conclusion into something that isn't. And the best example of that is obviously Buster Douglas versus Tyson. You had Buster Douglas that was plucked up from obscurity. He was 40-1 against, the mother of his child, I think, had died 2 weeks prior. His mother had just died as well or something. It was all in a short period of time. You had somebody there that was fought their best fight against somebody that should have beaten him, 99 times out of 100. And that one time was that one night when, yeah, the rest is history in 1990. If they would have had a rematch, Tyson all the way. The mentality could just change. How many people have we seen in the past where they've been great, and just because they haven't been mentally on it, if you want to put it that way, or just not there, or whatever, whichever terminology you want to apply to it, they just haven't been themselves. And when they should have won, they didn't. And that's just what I see next weekend. But Graeme, you can next weekend message me afterwards and rip me if I'm way wrong with that one. But I just think, one time in 100 it's going to happen, or 9 times out of 10, whatever. I just think that, and if we're going to use windmill terminology, next weekend, that's when the windmill shot will land.
Right on. We have to say goodbye.
Yep, absolutely.
Our time is about to literally run out. Thanks very much, Kristian. Appreciate your input. Thanks very much, Carl, from across the pond, for your input. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Absolutely.